Okay, so first of all, at the beginning there, where she says, what, he's talking to this rabbi to get talking points on Israel. How come he couldn't just go to someone like Dennis Prager? Now, let's just get this out of the way. Let me explain my relationship to Charlie, and it'll hopefully this will make some sense, just in case you're believing Candace's theories. So, yes, I'm an ordained rabbi. I am a rabbi. I'm also a regular opinion writer, columnist for the Jerusalem Post. I appear there a couple times a month, and those writings are all about politics, all about what is going on in Israel. I also appear regularly on a number of shows in both the Christian media and the political conservative space, whether it's on networks like TBN or on Steve Bannon's War Room. I appeared on the Charlie Kirk show a number of times. I also had a show. I hosted a weekly show about Israel on the Real America's Voice network for about 6 months back in 2024. It was a pilot. And the Real America's Voice network, in case you don't know, that's the same network that Charlie Kirk's show is on, that Steve Bannon's show is on, that Jack Posobiec's show is on. It's the MAGA network. And I had a show on that network, and I also appeared on their morning show regularly. So all of those appearances are all about politics. I'm a political commentator, besides the fact that I am a rabbi. Now, if Candace had simply Googled my name, I'm pretty easy to find. If you Google my name and just see what I do, you'll see that that is what I do. So this, just painting it as, oh, he's got this rabbi, he's got this rabbi, he's got this rabbi. The fact that I'm a rabbi is not really relevant to this conversation. Charlie used me as a resource from Israel. Now, why wouldn't he just go to Dennis Prager? Okay, Dennis Prager is a Jew. He's an American public intellectual. He's written some wonderful books, and he does talk about Israel, but he's a thinker who's American and talks about America most of the time. The entire reason I had a regular relationship with Charlie was that Charlie liked to stay informed about every topic that he covered, okay? And with all of the conflicting information and different opinions flying around about Israel, Charlie created a WhatsApp group, the famous WhatsApp group. He created a WhatsApp group to discuss Israel issues, okay? And in the WhatsApp group, he put a couple members of his staff and some people that he knew that he trusted on the Israel issue. And when he was putting the WhatsApp group together, he wanted to actually have a person from Israel in it. Oh, wow. Why would he have this rabbi from Israel? The reason is because he wanted, if he's going to cover an issue and he's going to talk about an issue, he doesn't want all of his information to come from people who are far away from the issue. Okay, he wanted to actually have a source on the ground in Israel who knows the politics, who knows what's going on there, but he also was looking for someone who understands his political viewpoint, who understands MAGA, who understands America First politics. And
does that make sense? To me, that makes perfect sense. That makes perfect sense. Not only because I want it to make sense or I'm trying to make it square that peg. That makes perfect sense why this gentleman all the way in Israel would be commenting or meeting with Charlie Kirk. That makes perfect sense. But I want to know what y'all think. If that doesn't make sense to you, let me know for sure. But let's keep it going.
And that he could trust. And because he knew me and because he knew of my relationship with other people in the MAGA movement, he was aware of my close working relationship with Steve Bannon and that I'm a regular on Steve's show. Charlie was very close to Steve. And so he was aware of me from that. So he knew me from my involvement in the MAGA movement. I'd met Charlie a few years earlier at Turning Point USA's America Fest, which I attend every year. Okay, so he knew that so here I am a Jew from Israel. I'm an Israeli who understands MAGA, who's also a political commentator, so I'm on top of the issues. That's a pretty good resource. I'm not trying to toot my own horn. I'm not such a famous guy, but I'm out there in public. It's easy to know what I do. And it makes sense that to add to the group of resources about Israel that he was talking to, I was part of that conversation, okay?
Sorry about that. All right, so tomorrow evening, I'm having a panel discussion with a whole bunch of ladies. I found some videos about feminism that I just thought were super, super insightful, right? I thought it was a good discussion. But I have a little bit of a problem because I'm not a lady, right? And I'm married, right? So I just wanted to have this discussion and I wanted to hear what women thought about it. So I had women I've tapped women to come on the panel to have this discussion about feminism and whether or not feminism lied to women. That makes perfect sense that they would be the more of the subject matter experts. Some are married, some are not, some are single, some are divorced, but it would make sense that they would have a better perspective of it. And I don't think that that's a reach. Like, I really think it's useful. I think it would be good for the community to hear it. I don't think they'd want to hear from me. I think they'd want to hear from ladies. Call me crazy. Again, Cantifa, all you Cantifaites, y'all make sure y'all get up here to the front of the church. Why do y'all want to believe Candace so bad? I really want to know that. I really want to know. Why do you want to believe her? She sounds preposterous. She sounds insane. Like, why? I didn't even need this man to tell me why he was on the phone with Charlie Kirk for me to know that it made sense that he was on the phone with Charlie Kirk. Candace's story never made sense to me. And now look at this. All right, let's keep this dance going. Let's go.
So they go, why doesn't you just go to Dennis Prager? Look, Dennis Prager's wonderful, I guess, whatever you think of Dennis Prager. But why he wanted someone from Israel who has his finger on the pulse of the politics there. So that's why I had this relationship with Charlie. And that's why this was put together. Now, as for the Zoom call she's talking about, what she's referring to there is a Zoom call that Charlie had the night before he was killed about Israel. Now, why did he have this Zoom call? So first of all, this Zoom call was not a sudden Zoom call. It wasn't an emergency call to talk him off the ledge or anything like that. This Zoom call was on the schedule for weeks in advance. And it was put on the schedule by Charlie because it was the night before he was starting his next campus tour. Now, a lot of people don't realize that a huge number of the questions that Charlie would get asked on his campus tour were always about Israel. And he hated that. It drove him nuts because he was there to talk about America. And he would get asked all these questions about Israel. It was something like half the questions he got asked were about Israel. And he wasn't an expert on Israel. So he wanted to prepare to go out on campus and talk about Israel. I wasn't giving him talking points, but what he did was in advance of the call, his staff provided me with the most commonly asked questions that he got about Israel. And then I prepared information about it. He didn't accept every point that I made. That's fine. That's not what it was about. But he wanted to talk through the talking points. And there were a number of people on the Zoom call. Josh Hammer obviously was on it. He said that, but it wasn't just me and Josh Hammer. There were a number of people there. I'm not going to say who they were because it's not my place to disclose who else was on the call, but there were some other people from Charlie's staff. There were people there on the call, and we were going through and talking through these issues, and me as the expert from Israel was providing my insight on these issues. That's what the call was about. It was called by Charlie. It was on the schedule for weeks. Okay, so that's what that call was about. That's what my relationship with Charlie was. That's why I had a relationship to Charlie. Let's take a look at the second clip now.
The day before, as we know, Charlie messages a group of people.
Okay, real quick. So before we get into the second clip, did that first clip make sense? Why he was actually on the call? What is his role, being that he lives in Israel and Charlie was in the US? Does that make sense? Green hearts in the chat if that makes sense to you. If that makes sense to you, let me know, because it makes sense to me, but I already believed and understood. I'm like, I can understand why somebody would do that. I have friends who are applying for jobs in positions that they already fulfill, right? They're just moving into another place, doing the same job. Why do they still study? Why do they bring up the stats? Why? Because they want to make sure they give the best answer possible. That's really it. Okay. Shout out to the best live chat. Thank y'all so much. It doesn't seem like, to me, the problem with Candace, and I'll just say this real quick, big screen. The problem with Candace is that she doesn't want to be charitable to anything that doesn't bode with her narrative, which I think her narrative is to destroy. Turning Point, she hated Charlie Kirk. She hates Erica Kirk. Don't hate me. I'm just pointing out the truth. I'm just pointing out the obvious.
Candace does not know how Charlie prepared all of the issues that he talked about, both for his show and for debating with college students. He was a relentless preparer, and he was a voracious reader. He was also a very busy person. So Charlie had people that he relied on who were experts in all the different issues that he covered, that he relied on to talk through every single issue that he dealt with. Okay. And so this group chat about Israel is just one of many chats that Charlie had to talk about different issues. Okay. He didn't rely just on himself. Okay. Maybe Candace relies just on himself, but Charlie relied on, he had a lot of people in his life, mentors on different issues that he dealt with. Okay. That's number one. Now, and I already mentioned the fact that it was not 4 a.m. I was in Buffalo, New York. I was stateside, and that this meeting had been planned for a while. Now, let me explain Charlie's position on Israel, because now you can take my word for it or not. Candace has seen a couple screenshots that were sent to her by Andrew from that chat from that day. And that's how she knows about it. That's how she knows about that.
Let me just add this last little point that I promise I'm not going to keep stopping. This man was the one that was on the call. Like, so let's be real here. He was on the call or the Zoom call. He's been a mentor to Charlie Kirk. It's very fair to say that this man knows what he's talking about. There's very good reason to be like, okay, yeah, he's the one. He would be the one that we believe over Candace, right? So Cantifa, what are we doing? What are you doing? Why is this man not a credible resource? He was actually on the call. It's not just you or myself who weren't on the call. This man was on the call with Josh Hammer, with Charlie Kirk. Why is he not a credible source? That's all I'm asking. That's all I'm wondering.
That chat group. But I was in constant conversation with Charlie, again, as a resource for him on Israel. He would ask questions. He would want there be a headline. He'd want to check in on it, see what the Israeli side is. That doesn't mean he accepted my talking points. It was just, I was just providing our side of the story for things. Okay. Now, my understanding of Charlie's position here was this. If you go back to the Student Action Summit in July, and that's where all this stuff blew up. That's where this whole thing started, with the donors getting upset at him, where Tucker Carlson gave a speech there that was quite anti-Israel and quite anti-Jewish. It included like a harangue about Bill Ackman and the Mossad and Jeffrey Epstein. He gave a speech that really upset a lot of Jews. And that's when he started getting a lot of heat to cancel people, to cancel Tucker Carlson. That was what was going on. And I was actually on the side of saying that he shouldn't cancel anybody. I'm not into canceling people's voices. I don't think it's productive. I don't think we gain much from it. That's another topic for another time. But I even wrote, so when all that criticism was happening, when the Jewish community was criticizing Turning Point and Charlie for platforming Tucker Carlson, I wrote an opinion piece in the Jerusalem Post. Actually, it's right here. Let me pull it up. Here, I wrote an opinion piece in the Jerusalem Post defending Charlie Kirk for platforming these people. And in it, I talked about the fact that we can't have this purity test. We can't be, insisting that people, agree to everything Israel says in order to platform them, and that we have to be smarter about it. This isn't about political purity test. The pro-Israel movement cannot afford to demand absolute ideological conformity. And this was a case that I was making in my column, in this column that I wrote in the Jerusalem Post. Okay, and around that time, I also appeared a couple times on the Charlie Kirk show. This was all part of my defense of Charlie for platforming people like Tucker Carlson. I never called for him to cancel any voices. Now, Charlie did not agree with the things that Tucker said about Israel. Charlie had his questions, he had his criticisms about Israel, and that was all part of our daily conversations. But Charlie was opposed to Jewish donors who were, he felt, bullying him to cancel people. That's what he was upset about. It never affected his views of Israel's actions or the conflict with Israel. It didn't make him choose the other side. It didn't make him anti-Israel. He was uncomfortable with Prime Minister Netanyahu. So are like half of Israelis. And he had his criticisms for Israel, but it was mainly a criticism of the Israel wing that would, number one, attack him for platforming Tucker when he's out there on college campuses defending Israel all the time, and he did. People didn't know how often he got asked questions about Israel, so that infuriated him. And at the same time, he was not going to back down off of platforming people. So he didn't want to cancel Tucker Carlson. These Jewish donors were not blackmailing him. They just basically said, we don't want to fund something we don't believe in. And if you're gonna platform prominent speakers who are against our interests, we're out of here. So that's what that conversation was about. Charlie was upset about it. It's true. And I have to say that earlier in the day, when Charlie sent out that text message saying, I'm done with the pro-Israel movement, I'm going to invite Candace back, because this Jewish donor pulled out. From my perspective, I remember reading the text thinking to myself, I wonder if he's going to cancel our Zoom meeting tonight. Because again, this Zoom meeting to talk about Israel the night before his campus tour was on the schedule for weeks. They'd given me all the questions to prepare, and I was getting ready for this meeting that I was going to have. And I thought, okay, maybe he's serious. Maybe he's abandoning the pro-Israel cause, and we're not even going to have our meeting. But he wanted to have the meeting anyway. So we had this meeting. Now, here is the thing that I said at the beginning that I'll really point out the big problem with this whole theory of Candace's. So, Candace is a master of walking up to the line and not saying the next thing, but allowing you to take the hint. It's very smart. She's sharp, and there's this implication here that I had something to do with his murder, that maybe I'm kind of some sort of Israeli agent. And in fact, there are some conspiracy theorists on the right who have jumped on this, and they've even referred to me as a Mossad agent, right? Charlie Kirk's handler, Israeli agent, Rabbi Pesach Wolicki. And this is all based on the fact that we had this Zoom call the night before. But what's the problem? The problem is that if that's what makes me a Mossad agent, then I'm the dumbest Mossad agent in the world. Why? Well, how does everyone know that this Zoom call took place? How does everyone know about it? How does anyone know about it? You know how? There's only one way. I told everyone about it. The only source, first of all, no one else other than me and Josh Hammer have ever said publicly that we were on this Zoom call. And after Charlie was killed, I gave an interview to the New York Post. Okay? Here's the interview I gave to the New York Post. It's up here on the screen right now. Here. This is a story in the New York Post from a couple days after Charlie was killed. Charlie Kirk and Rabbi Powell talked hours before his death. Okay? And there's a picture of me and Charlie, and there's Jack Posobiec in the background, and that's a picture taken a few years ago when I first met Charlie. And I talked about this Zoom call and what it was about. Josh at that point had never said anything about the Zoom call. And in fact, before I gave the interview to the New York Post, I consulted with Josh to make sure that he'd be okay with me mentioning this Zoom call. And he said, fine, go ahead. So I told the world about this Zoom call. That's the only way anyone knows this Zoom call existed. Okay. So if I had something to do with the death of Charlie Kirk, why on earth, like if Candace's story is right, that, the call didn't go well, and then the next day he was dead, and why on earth after his death would I tell the world that I had a Zoom call with Charlie Kirk the night before he was killed? That would be the dumbest thing I could do. I should be fired if I was some sort of agent. There'd be no incentive whatsoever for me to publicize the fact that Zoom call took place after Charlie was killed, and there were already some crazy people on the right saying that Israel was involved in it. It would be a very dumb thing to do. And it was only after that Josh also started talking about the Zoom call.
I know you liked that episode. This is actually a clip from a larger live stream. The link is down in the description, so you can go check it out. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you down there. Grace and peace.